Cheryl's going to get started, and I'd like to introduce her. Sheryl Poirier is a distinguished Toastmaster that has enjoyed speaking and leading in Toastmasters at all levels. In District 64, she has been an area director and a division director twice each. Club growth, program quality, and district director once each. Wow.
Once is enough.
Once is enough. She is currently the Area 2 Director in District 45. Sheryl learned to answer off-topic and off-the-wall questions while teaching 11 to 17-year-olds. Oh my. Of course, in school, she aimed to give truthful answers. When her son asked, "Mommy, can you tell me a story?" he challenged her imagination. These experiences and more have prepared Sheryl to embrace table topics. While we do impromptu speaking daily, our responses to questions or discussion topics may be less confident or less organized than we desire. I know I've been there. How can we organize a response? How can we use our skills of body language and vocal variety to give the impression of and build confidence? Table topics is the answer. Sheryl has all those answers for us today. No pressure. Please help me welcome Sheryl.
Well, while my topic is impromptu speaking, I never do anything impromptu, so I do have some notes in case nobody has any answers out there. Mark Twain I'll just paraphrase it, said, "It takes me at least 3 weeks to do a good impromptu speech." So I don't know if you really want to spend 3 weeks before you answer that one table topics question, right? Oh, well, come back 3 meetings from now and give you the answer. No, we don't do that. There are other places in our lives outside of Toastmasters, this is a big secret, where we do impromptu speaking. Now, for example, a long time ago, I underwent 3 interviews for a similar job in 3 different places in less than a month. The first one I was late, and I spent a lot of my time rambling on about, oh my gosh, I'm sorry I'm late. Oh. I wasn't in Toastmasters, just so you know. The second one, I was all prepped. I was ready. I'd already had that one interview with those terrible questions that scared me. And I went and I planned up. It was the opposite. The third one, I was totally prepared, and I got that job. So it was a training session to go painfully through these 3 different interviews where I drove all over the province of Manitoba to get them, by the way. It was a learning session, but it's nothing compared to what we do in table topics in Toastmasters. 10 years ago, I had the unenviable job of tricking my then fiance to go to a party in his honor, completely keeping it a surprise. Never mind that all his kids had been in the province and come home. So that didn't clue him in. His birthday was already over, the actual date, but I had to get him dressed in at least business casual, which he hates. He works on his own, he lives in his pajamas all day. Yeah, I know. I had to get him to a town neither of us lived in, to a hall where there was no purpose for us to go there. Did I have to use impromptu speaking? All evening. Actually, most of the day and several days before. We won't call it what it really was, which was lying. But I managed to get him there and completely surprise him. Now this took our whole village, right? It took all the family, it took my Toastmaster friends, and we all brainstormed ideas about what stories Sheryl could tell. So you know how Jeff Sobel was talking about sharing stories? We were sharing stories long before we heard of Jeff Sobel. Now the latest thing was I had to be interviewed. I didn't have to be, I volunteered to be, by Diabetes Canada. They were collecting stories. Why Sheryl Have you contributed to Diabetes Canada for decades? They wanted to know my why. And I was able to control control my nerves on the phone and get through a half-hour interview about my why with only a day's notice. Now, whether they take those stories and publish them or use them anywhere else, I don't know, because there's a lot of people who donate to the CBA. So I was able to use all my skills, speak in complete sentences, take a breath, and tell, I think, a compelling story. Toastmasters did that for me, from where I flunked at those job interviews and felt confident in this particular interview, well out of the workforce. Now let's hear from you. Why do you do table topics, like table topics, or even if you hate it? What can you see the value in table topics? So if you want to stick up your hand and I'll see if I point for you. Reese, I know your name.
It allows you to express the raw thought in your mind.
Excellent answer. Express the raw thought that's in your mind. And maybe it's something you never thought you'd ever need to say out loud, but whoa! Yes, sir.
Oh, be concise, don't ramble.
Be concise. Yeah, don't be like me in that first job interview. Yes.
Think on your toes and think on your feet.
Or if you're on video, think on your seat. Yes. And we have to do that all day, every day, don't we? Especially at work. Or maybe if you have children.
Just check that your adrenal glands are working.
Mine are! Yes, check that your adrenal glands are working. Sue's a very funny lady. I spent hours in a car with her and got to know her in the last, yesterday? Was it yesterday?
Only yesterday.
It was only yesterday. Sir.
You don't have to do any homework.
Oh, you don't have to do any homework. Isn't that what's her name? I'm old and my name's go. Kendra, by that appeal to her, thank you so much. Why she thought, oh, I can do table topics. Is it true though?
Yes.
What we're doing though, when we're preparing, like Mark Twain said, for impromptu speaking, is we are looking at our lives and we know our own stories. And if you are able to do table topics and practice it a lot, you can bring those stories into the speeches. Irina's, for example, I'm pretty sure her table topic was based on her international speech, because I heard both before. I've heard her do both, because I'm the area director. And she managed to take another story and put it into a table topic. I've done it too, where I had a humorous speech in the district. I came second, but I had a humorous speech. And then another year I was in the table topics contest, and I went, ooh, I can use part of that humorous speech. But then I unfortunately said, the great thing about Toastmasters is that you can use other stories again. And my best friend thought, that's why I lost. I shouldn't have said that. I should have just gone into the story. By the way, it's because my skirt fell down in front of my students. So I use that story a lot because it's true. I've even had new teachers say, oh, I'm so glad none of that happened to me. So there are many reasons we can do it. After you've done a table topics, how do you feel? What do you feel after you feel you've succeeded at doing them? And if you have to go back to your first years in Toastmasters, elation. Elation is a good word. Tom?
I think, for me anyway, it gets me prepared for outside of Toastmasters. If somebody asks me a question that I didn't know off the top of my head.
And feel some success from that?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you happy, it makes people happy, and they feel successful. Kathy?
It's been great preparation for me because I run a number of neighborhood and community organizations, volunteer organizations, and all of a sudden you'll be called by CBC and say 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, can you be on the air and I need you to fill 20 minutes. Table topics has really helped with that.
And it's true, right? When I joined, I thought the people in my club were kidding, and they said, somebody may come up to you with a microphone from CBC or CTV or whatever, because we're Canadians, and ask you a question on some topic of the day. I actually saw a former Toastmaster like that just last spring. I phoned him up and I said, "You did a great job, but there's where you could have improved." And he said, "Well, if only I had time." But he was very nervous about it, he said. And he said, "I didn't think I did well." I said, "No, yes, you did actually do better than most people who are up on the street. Still working on getting him back." He's a techie. He should have been through COVID. It would have been great. Okay, but how do we do it? What are some tips you can give people? Do you have a favorite tip you like to share that helps people when they do table topics, especially with newer people?
Pause. Yeah.
Oh, the pause. The pause. It's actually the first thing I have written in my notes in case people didn't have answers. It's so important. Breathe. Just pause even before you start. Because I know somebody once in your life told you think before you speak. So when you're taking that pause, you can be thinking, right? Tom, do you have another?
I always like to say, that's a great question, whether it is or not.
If you're in this club, beware.
And then formulate an answer.
Yes, think repeating the question is tried and true, or rephrasing it. It's a great tip for new people. The trouble with it is, if everybody does it, it gets boring. I would like people to think about different ways they can rephrase. Another stalling tactic is to take a sip of water, which I kind of wish I had. Take a sip of water, because they're not timing you to start talking. Remember that. So you can have a pause. You can take a sip of water. You can rephrase the question. And now the plus about rephrasing it is that it's active listening. You are demonstrating that you heard the question. And there are long-term Toastmasters who go, "Oh, sorry, I was wool gathering, I missed that. What did you say?" We're supposed to be doing the other half of communication, right? Listening. Now, another tip I often get, people say, "Well, I don't understand the question, I can't talk about that." Especially new people. Well, they've already said a few seconds, so you can still applaud them. How do you help people when they don't have anything to say on that topic? What advice could you give them? Anne?
For me, it doesn't really matter. Not that it doesn't matter what the question is, but if you don't stress yourself over the question, make up a story, make up an answer. It's not what you actually say, it's how you say it. So even if you're not answering the question, you're developing a thought process of opening a body and a conclusion. So make up a story, embellish it.
Carry the
That's
thought
what
through.
me, that's not.
Sorry, that was
That's
your
what
lesson. Yes, it was. And if you have to twist the question, the more experienced you get. My point about table topics and totally going the other way, the more experienced you get, maybe you can think of something that's analogous. So if the question is about dogs, and you don't know anything about dogs, you could say, "I would love to know more about dogs, but I am an expert on horses."
Yeah.
And it shows you did listen, and you are paying attention to what that person's saying. So you're not being rude. Okay, guests coming in might think it's rude that you don't answer the question. I mean, we all know we make stuff up all the time, but a guest might not see that. So if you can demonstrate sliding it a little to the side, I find that works very well. Now, if you're in a table topics contest, they don't really like you to do that, do they? They want you to talk about that question. That Sheryl has spent a lot of time coming up with that question. But in the big club, or even in a conversation, you're at a party and someone asks you, "What do you know about airplane engines?" And you go, "Nothing, but I'm pretty good with cars." That's not me, that would be a total lie. Hey, other advice for newcomers? Oh, Kathy.
I think the table topics master has a role to play in this, so by introducing the overall topic at the beginning,
Great.
so that when the question comes, nobody can say, "I don't have anything to say on that topic," right? And it may be the theme of the meeting, and at my club, we have themes for every meeting, and all our promotions go out with the theme around it, and the pictures around it. So that way you can say, this is what we're doing.
That's true, absolutely true. I'm just looking at the clock. So I need to move on. But there are some structures you can also teach people. Jim Kukati came to speak in District 64, so did Kathy, was with her, by the way. And he said what he does when he doesn't know what to answer is he goes, past, present, future. In the past I did, right now I'd like to, in the future I am doing, and in the future I would like to. And you can make it up too, or you can put all those things together like the analogous topic and then go past, present, future. Anybody know of another structure that you could use as sort of a fallback?
I think a sandwich approach where you're making an affirmation in response to the topic, and then you're putting in a rich filler and then summing it up at the end.
Yes. That could also be called make a point. Tell your story, make a point. Or it could be a fictional story entirely where you have an exciting opening and a little tail in the middle. But putting that opening body close structure really covers a lot of different kinds of structures.
Well, I was just wondering if you could give a quick example of one of those that you just mentioned, which was past, present, and future.
Oh, past, present, future? All right, give me a table topics question. Put you on the spot to come up with
If you were a bird, what bird would you be?
If I were a bird, what bird would I be? So everybody heard the question? Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, birds are some of the most fascinating animals. Do you know they come in thousands of different colors? I have looked at bird books and been completely amazed. I have sat in my backyard watching for ones that are supposed to be local. But the ones that have fascinated me the most are the most adaptable, showing up all over the world, seem to eat almost anything, so they never seem to die off. The common sparrow. That little animal seems to live everywhere in at least temperate and even northern climes. I live in Winnipeg. I have seen sparrows in January. It's pretty rare because they're usually hiding. But I think being an adaptable bird like that would, I'm not doing past, present, and future, I'm doing the story, sorry. I just got excited. An adaptable bird like that would be a fine bird to be. But sorry, I didn't quite do past, present, and future. Yeah.
Well, actually.
Well, it wasn't past, present, future, but it's a story, right? And you know, I don't really know very much about birds, but I do watch them. So I could take a story from my life where I did sit in my backyard looking for the local birds and seeing how many I could find, so that I could adapt it to table topics. Oh, I'm sorry, I really should try that then. Let's say the question was about dogs. All right. Do I like dogs? Say it's that. When I was a kid, we adopted a 6-year-old Pomeranian cross. She was a very pretty dog, but she really liked to bark. We didn't need our doorbell after we had Pom Pom. That really was her name. But it also drove us crazy when she barked when a rabbit ran across the front yard or someone walked down the street. I found looking after Pom Pom to be a challenge, so I currently, in the present, do not have a dog. I have granddogs. Our children have dogs and cats. And they're fun to play with, but I don't have to clean up after them. I don't have to babysit them. So in the present, I don't own a dog, but I do enjoy them. Now, will I own a dog in the future? That's hard to say. I have a husband who doesn't want one. But maybe if I get rid of him, right, so there's past, present, and future. Maybe it's time for some of you to try some table topics.
We promise not to tell him.
Oh, he knows because I've used it before. I belong to 5 different clubs. I do a lot of table topics. Though we have just a couple of minutes. There are other ways to practice impromptu speaking. In Speechifier, we have not only table topics, we do the great debate. And this really forces you to think of somebody else's opinion. We don't do a great formal debate, it's just 2 minutes and 1 minute for each speaker, or two speakers. But it's been such a joy to me to have to say that I completely agree with something I really don't, and try to think what that other person's going to say in response. And that is more like real life. Holding conversations is another way you could do it. Have two people come up for table topics. You are going to tell me why you like liquid soap, and you are going to tell me why you like bar soap. And then have two people have a minute each to give their opinions, or they can talk back and forth however you want. Bringing some life into table topics is easy. You can Google it and find hundreds of ideas just to liven up your table topic sessions and get people more practice in real life. Because if you're thinking about what's going on around you, you have a theme for your meeting, you can start preparing for table topics in case they call on you. And if you are going to an event such as this, you might know your audience and start thinking about what questions might people ask me, like, how the heck is a Winnipegger in District 45? In fact, there's two of us. It's an interesting way to think about where you're going, who you're going to see, what questions might they ask you. Don't freak out about it, like don't make notes, don't write essays. Simply find a way to think about what you might be asked, and you will be preparing for those impromptu speeches. Now, is there anyone who'd like to just end with another impromptu session? Let me take a volunteer who'd like to try table topics. I see Kathy's trying to prod me. Anyone just to stand up where you are? Betsy! All right. This is a serious question. So Betsy, I would like you to tell me, what did you learn about leadership in one of the first jobs you ever had? So please help me welcome Betsy to stand up and turn around. She's taking her time.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, for the question, what did I learn about leadership on my first job?
Yes, in one of your first jobs.
One of my first jobs, okay. One of my first jobs was working as a reporter photographer, which was a blast. And one of the things I learned about leadership, which I also have carried into the present, and I intend to carry into the future, is to be open-minded to what is before me. Because we all bring bias where we go. But to have the vision of being open-minded is a great aspiration, which as I'm speaking, this is another cool thing about table topics, it helps you refine your thinking. So I feel like I've just realized something that I believe, and I didn't even know I believed it, that the practice of trying to see clearly is one that I learned in that first job, and that I carry in the present, and I hope to carry with me to the day I die, or stop speaking, whichever comes first.
There was a little callback to one of the first answers to one of my questions that Reese gave. I hope that you have all found a little bit of something that you can take back to your clubs. I actually have enough for another half hour just on being Table Topics Master alone, but I knew I wouldn't get to it. So, anybody wants what I think about what a Table Topics Master should do? Kathy gave part of it, which I'm very grateful for. I hope you all go out in the world and use your voice, your impromptu speaking skills to, as we all want to do, make this world a better place.
Right. Thank you.
Of appreciation from the committee for your service here today and sharing your secrets.
I hope it helps.
Thank you everyone for attending. We'll be heading to back to the ballroom for lunch.